Hello and welcome to this week's Natural Gardening Live with me, Josie, your natural gardening coach. Today we are talking about, what are we talking about today? We're talking about how to feed and support your garden naturally. So we're talking through the different benefits of natural feeding and pest control, if you like, and treatments. I can't really narrow it down to pest control because it'd be for fungal disease. Anyway, so I'll be talking about benefits of those, and I will have 5 ways that you can actually feed and support your garden naturally with recipes that you can make at home. So they'll cost you next to nothing to make, to knock up, to make. And you'll have everything basically either in your garden or in your kitchen cupboards. Right, let's have a look. Right, okay, 5 ways you can feed and support your garden naturally. So, question for you. Have you ever tried to make your own feeds? Have you ever tried to make your own pest control treatments and remedies? If you have, let me know how they went, which ones you tried to make, and how it went for you. So let us know in the comments. Natural feeds and treatments can be some of the easiest and most budget-friendly ways of supporting your garden. It's amazing. As long as you know where to start, you're okay. Now, there are a lot of different, for family in the notes, there are an awful lot of different benefits along with natural feeds and treatments. So beyond the point of them actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, there are more sort of benefits and more ways that they support your garden than actually just what you're using them for. So a really good way, a really good starting point for natural feeds and treatments. I'm using that as a really good umbrella statement, but it doesn't do them justice really, calling them feeds and treatments, but it's an easy way of describing them all. So these methods of making things, these products, if you like, they don't leave any residue in your soil. Now, this is the biggest issue when it comes to chemical treatments, is the residue left in the soil can be there for years. So as much as they say usually on the bottle, you can start planting again in 3 to 5 days, maybe a week to 10 days, anything like that. There's always going to be, for years on, there'll be residue left in the soil. It may not be harmful to the plants that you're going to be planting or the seeds you're going to be sowing, but it will affect the ecosystem in the soil. It just will. So natural feeds and treatments you won't have that risk. You won't have them. It won't leave the residue in the soil. My teeth today, seriously. It won't leave the residue in the soil to have that effect sort of left behind. So there won't be long-term effects on the soil, on the plants that are growing in the soil, or even the insects and the sort of soil-borne organisms and things that live in the soil. They won't have a long-term harmful effect on those. So one benefit beyond the point of them actually feeding or looking after your plants, that's a really good benefit. Natural feeds and treatments, mainly towards the treatment side, if you're using natural pest controls, we've spoken about this on the past videos that I've done on pest control for your garden. I think it was aphid one. I think I did. It was last week's one as well. I mentioned it. Chemical treatments, pest control in general in your garden. When you're trying to manage the pest control, you're not trying to clear out the entire population of pests that are causing problems in your garden, because they are a link in the chain of your garden's ecosystem, and they do support other things living in your garden that you want to keep in your garden. So by clearing them all out, you're actually going to shoot yourself in the foot a little bit. So it's not about clearing them out completely. It's about reducing and managing the population so your garden can take care of itself, can recover faster, and it all goes to supporting each other. It's in balance. We like balance. We don't like to be cleared out. We like balance. So where you use chemical products to kill off and clear out populations of insects that are actually causing problems and damaging your plants, this can also have a knock-on effect with other insects that live in your gardens, as I say, that part of the ecosystem in the chain. They can kill off pollinators that land on the plants that you use the pesticides on, which is, we know pollinators are so vital to the gardens and to us as people as well, for food production, medicines and all that sort of thing. So if you have any risk of killing off pollinators in your garden, you really don't want to be doing it. Personally, you really don't. So natural treatments, if you're using natural pest control, it reduces, if not eradicates, the problem of killing off pollinators, or the risk of killing off pollinators. I'm feeling a bit nasal today. I think I've got a bit of a pollen issue myself. So that's another benefit to a natural way of feeding and treating your garden for pest damage. And also, it's not harmful to us, our pets, our children, our families, and any wildlife that are using our garden as their home. natural feeds and treatments, natural treatments particularly, they reduce the risk of causing any negative effects on the environment, on the wildlife that live in our garden. And if we've got pets and family and pets and children that like to spend time in the garden, you don't want to have to worry about what flower you've sprayed or what part of the garden has got weed killer on it, or the effects that these treatments might have if they accidentally ingest them, or anything like that. You haven't got to rush them to the doctors or the vets. There isn't this kind of issue there. So that, for peace of mind alone, is worth it. So those are just some of the benefits that we've got for natural feeds and treatments that, well, they kind of outweigh the actual purpose of using them a little bit, if you think about it. So if you're thinking about, I've lost my notes now. So if you're thinking about actually why it's, what's the word I'm thinking of? If you look at like the overall overarching reason to go down that road of using natural products over store-bought chemical products, the safety of your family and your pets is kind of, right up there. There's a word I'm thinking of, but I really can't think of it. It's dreadful. I didn't write it on my notes because I'm freeing, and now I'm freestyling, if you like, waffling. I didn't write it on my notes, no. So yes, but that puts it right up there, the safety factor. I'll think of it in a minute and I'll shout it out. And it won't make any sense to anyone. Let's talk about feeding. I'll start with feeding because it is kind of the one that I get asked about the most, I will say. And I thought it'd be more useful to you. So I'll start with that because that's what we want to hear. So it's good. So the number of different products or ways of producing food for your plants, which are great for batching as well. So you can batch in advance, ready for the growing season. A number of different ways you can do this, supporting all the different ways your plants need feeding and supporting. So you can cover all sorts of things. So you can make liquid feeds. I've spoken about the banana liquid feed, the banana skin liquid feed, the nettle and comfrey weed soaks, fermented. What did I do the other month? The fermented vegetable peeling one, which I still haven't tried. I will have to try and do that one. I did say I was going to try it this year, but I haven't got around to doing it. Fermented. I'll try and find that. I know I did a live on that a few months ago. Fermented vegetable peeling. Well, they call it tea, but it's kind of, I suppose it's more of a stew than anything. It's like, it smells funny. It's not nice. It's not a tea, that's for sure. And even, which is a good one if you've got them, recycled aquarium water. So if you've got fish, if you've got like an aquarium, like either a freshwater or saltwater, probably freshwater is better, aquarium in your lounge or in your house, when you do a water change, even if it's a half water change, full water change, the water is actually quite a good potassium feed as well for your plants. So throw the water away, use it on your garden, feed your garden at the same time. So, as I say, there are many different ways of making feeds for your plants, and I will talk you through them in a minute. I've got a few methods of doing it which can help you out, and I've got a few videos as well which I'll post through the week. So, as I said about the liquid feeds, you can have the liquid feeds, which is what I went through. Compost, top dressing, same sort of thing. Mulching, again, same sort of thing. And slow release dry feeds. These are all really good ways of making feeds for your garden at home, homemade, for next to nothing, from things found in your garden or household waste. It's genius. So there are lots of different ways you can make food for your plants. Very effective ways. I've lost myself. I'm sorry. I'm waffling. Understanding the resources nature can provide for your garden, for you as well, in fairness, resources they can provide for your garden can be a real game changer when it comes to supporting your garden naturally. Batching these feeds in advance creates so much more time freedom and like flexibility in your garden. You can make them ahead of time and have them there ready for the growing season, which is really great. So they're there when you need them. You don't have to worry about, oh, my plant's the leaves are looking a bit yellow, I need to feed them. I haven't got the food. I've got to go out and buy it. I've got to come back, then feed the plant. And then it's going to take another, say, week before it even starts to recover. You've got it there, sat in the shed or sat in maybe in the greenhouse in the cupboard or whatever, ready. You can just go, oh, need feed, straight away. And being natural feed, you know it's going to start working faster because it's easier for the plants to take up the nutrients from these natural feeds. So you're ahead of yourself already. So you're going to reduce the time it takes for your plants to recover from any issues. So batching if you can is amazing. Such a good idea. As I say, if you can make all this from the stuff you've got in your cupboards, a garden, or even your kitchen waste, then you can make it whatever time. It's not going to cost you a lot, if anything. So when I'm going off again off notes, so I apologise for this, but it will come back round. I'll try and get it back round to where we're going. So the ones that I batch myself are the Sting and Nettle weed soak. So Sting and Nettle feed, liquid feed. There's the high nitrogen liquid feed, which is very good for tomatoes. Very good for tomatoes. So very good for an early season new growth nitrogen feed. Very good for that. So I make a lot of that up. To be fair, I could make more. I do 2 batches through the year because I just don't have enough. I've just run out of my second batch, and we're halfway through summer. We're not even halfway through summer yet, are we? Let's face it, we're in July. So, I'm going to need more. So I should have done a 3rd batch really, but I didn't get around to doing one this year. So I've caught short. So I do the nettle weed soak. I do the banana skin liquid feed, which I do as sort of through the year, quite a few different batches through the year that I use. And I mainly use that in the summer months when there's when your plants are producing flowers and fruit and things like that. Then I'll use that mainly. I use the nettle sort of early spring, mid-spring through to sort of summertime when all the new growth is starting. The plants are starting to produce buds. When they need supporting with nitrogen, really. Feeds which are a must-have, 3 types of feed which are must-have in your garden as you go through the growing year. So you've got nitrogen-based feed, potassium-based feed, and a calcium-based feed. So that might be a bit controversial because that's only 2 of the macronutrients that you need in the garden. But to me, those 2 are fairly the most important macronutrients that your plants need. And calcium will really go a long way towards supporting fruit and recovering from any disease and fungal damage as well. So definitely towards fruit as well, soft fruits, tomatoes, things like that. Calcium's good. So nitrogen feed, potassium feed, and calcium-based feeds as well. So I've got, just making sure I've got written down all 3. I've got 3 feeds here, or methods of making feeds to support these 3 types of feed, so that you can make these at home quite easily yourself. I think one of them, which I'll go through in a minute, you can make them all at home, cost you next to nothing to make, and they're so easy as well. And you can make them ahead of time, as I say, to batch them ahead. Nitrogen based, here we go, I found them again now. So the nettle weed soak is the most common of the nitrogen based liquid feeds. As I said, I've done a video on this. It's a short video, talks you through exactly what you need to do, and you can scale it up. It doesn't need a lot of thinking about, but I will talk you through it now, so you can have a look at that and you can listen to this. Absolutely fine. Whatever helps you. So as I say, it's the most common nitrogen-based liquid feed, which has been made by gardeners for, I want to say, centuries. It might even be close to millions of years. I don't know. I'm no good with times and things like that, but definitely centuries. It's always been talked about making things like this. So it's that and the comfrey liquid feed. They've both been used for a long, long, long time as a resource for your garden because it's so easy to make, so simple, and as I say, batching them is so easy. So it's as simple as cutting bunches of fresh nettles, fresh growth. The younger and fresher the growth, the better for these nettles. So they'd be stinging nettles, not any kind of nettle, stinging nettles, as fresh as possible. Fill a bucket, barrel, container of nettles, weigh the nettles down. So you fill up as much as you want, weigh them down with I use a plank of wood, just a lengthways with a brick on top. And it just keeps the nettles down. And then you cover the level of nettles with water. So you fill up past the nettles with water. And then the block and the wood just stops the nettles from floating to the surface. That keeps them all down. Fill with water, as I say, cover the nettles, and then leave them. So you leave them for at least a good couple of weeks, not months. The longer you leave them, the more nutrients gets leached out of the nettles. This creates a stronger or more concentrated nitrogen feed. When you come to using this, when you've got to the stage that you want to leave them, because it does start to smell. The smell, when you can smell it, it's good because you know it's fermenting and you know the nettles are starting to break down, which releases the nitrogen into the water. So as much as the smell smells nasty, it's good. It's a good smell. So just try and put them somewhere in your garden or somewhere in your property that isn't going to bother anyone, or you can forget about and not have to worry about the smell. So once you've got to the point that you can't put up the smell anymore, you decant off the liquid minus the nettles. I take the nettles out and put them in my compost heap, and then they can keep composting to their heart's content in there. It's fine. But you decant the water off into a sealable container. So I've got like a couple of 5-litre bottles with screw-on lids. They're fine. They work really well. And it's easy then to decant out of there into the watering cans as I need them. So then you mix them when you come to use them. You mix a 1-to-10 ratio. So 1 part nettle weed soak to 10 parts water. So you do it that way. And then that is your concentrated nitrogen liquid feed. Done. It's really simple. And me talking you through it actually makes it sound more complicated than it is. So if you watch the short that I did, you'll see how simple it is. It's just the time bit of waiting for it to the nettles to decompose in the water and release the nitrogen. That's the bit that takes the time, and the smell as well. Not so pleasant. But it's really quick. As I say, you can batch it. You can do tons of it, tons. Because nettles grow so readily. And I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't mind you cutting their nettles down for them. So it's fine. We have quite a few nice little patches of nettles in the garden that I can pick out. So potassium feeds. Now, as I say, I do the banana liquid feed, which again, I've got a video on, so I'll show you that, talk you through that. But I'm not going to talk about that one, because I talked about that before, and you can watch the video, so it's fine. But another one that's really good, if you live near the sea, look for kelp, sea kelp on the beach. Look for a weedy beach, look for your sea kelp. Now, sea kelp is a really good source of potassium for your garden. It's a really good source of potassium, full stop. And if you dry, so you leave it out, you can leave it out on concrete, hang it, whatever you want to do, dry it out, and then you can break it up or put it in like a blender or something like that and make it into a powder form. You can use it as a really good granular feed or top dressing, or you can use it as a mulch as well. If you leave it on top of your garden to break down, rather than drying it, leave it as like a top dressing mulch. Works really well to help condition your soil as well that way. So you can either make it into a powder form, so you can then sprinkle it round, or you can dig it into your soil, or you can use it as a green dressing, top dressing, or a green mulch. 3, baked eggshells. Now, this sounds like some gourmet meal, doesn't it? Baked eggshells. But no, they actually are a really good way of getting calcium and magnesium into your soil and support your plants. Making eggshells, you put them on a low heat for about, I don't know, half an hour or so, 15-20 minutes. Low heat, and it kills off any bacteria that is living on inside the eggshell. Like when you empty the egg, the bits that are left, any bacteria that's living inside, baking the eggshells actually helps to kill this off, which can have a negative effect on your soil if you leave them in. So you're better off not doing that. So bake the eggshells, and this makes them really brittle as well, so it makes them easier to crumble up. And I put mine in a small food processor. You can use a coffee bean grinder if you've got a coffee bean grinder, anything like that that can process these eggshells down to a powder. Because the finer the powder, the easier it is to break up in the soil and release the calcium out into the soil. Doing it this way, so now if you make it into a powder, if you make it into a coarser powder, it becomes more of a slow release feed for your plants, especially tomatoes, very good for tomatoes. But if you do it into a powder, you can add it to white vinegar and water and make a liquid feed with it that way as well. Because it breaks down, it will fizz when you add the vinegar to it. So it's really like a bit of a science project, so it's quite cool. Yeah, so you add that to vinegar and add that to water. So it's something like 2 tablespoons of eggshells to 2 tablespoons of vinegar to 5 litres of water. So over time, this will break down and release the calcium into the soil. So adding the powder to the ground when you're planting your plants, or doing them as a top dressing around your plants, this will break down. But the finer you make the powder, the quicker it will break down and the more fun. That was the 3 feeds we went through, different ways of making the feeds. And they're the 3 most important feeds, if you like. In my opinion, just putting that out there, my opinion, these are very good and very important types of feed to help support the health of your garden, help your plants recover from pest and disease damage, support growth, and support flowers and fruit production as well. So these 3 types of feed. But there are also lots of different other ways of making to support. Let's talk about treatments now. So I said to you earlier about managing, not clearing out. It's very important to know the difference between how you're going to support your garden with pest treatments and how you're going to actually effectively damage your garden or hinder your garden, if you like, with these treatments. So it's really important to know that line you don't cross. So here are two treatments in which work very well to reduce fungal diseases and damage and reduce soft-bodied insects on your plants. Now, I've done this as soft-bodied insects because they're the ones that are the most, the population explosion, that's the word, population explosion. They grow the fastest in the population and can do the most damage over a short period of time because they grow and lay so many eggs and they can become out of balance really quickly. So that's why I thought a soft-bodied insect one would probably be the best. So to start with, I'll do the disease and a fungal issue spray treatment. So I thought I'd go with that first, and then we'll talk about the soft-bodied insect spray. Dead nettle tea. Now, dead nettle tea is an effective. I mean, you can drink it yourself as well, but that's not to my liking. So dead nettle tea is very effective against mildew, molds, and I've found mild forms of rust. It's an astringent, so it helps, I think, on that front as well. Basically, you're making a tea out of dead nettles and letting it cool. It's as easy as cutting the dead nettles in your garden, putting them into a bowl, covering them with hot water. Basically, as I say, you're making a tea, an infusion. Wait for it to brew. I usually leave it overnight, so a whole day. That works fine, with good treatment. Then decant the water into a sprayable container, so it's ready to use. But this is a ready to use product. You don't have to dilute it with anything. It's just as you go. So it's really easy. But it's so easy to make. Soap sprays. So this is for the soft-bodied insect. So you mix 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil or olive oil, 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of natural soaps, and 2 litres of water. So mix it all together in that ratio and then pour it into a spray bottle. So this spray will quickly reduce the population of any soft-bodied insects in your garden. But as I say, you don't want to clear the garden of them. You just want to reduce the population back to a manageable amount. Soft-bodied insects breathe from their body. And when you spray them with this product, the oil in the soap coats their body and suffocates them. I know, it's horrible, but that's how it works. This is why it's effective. But again, we're not looking to eradicate the entire population of these creatures. We just want to get them to a manageable state that the plants can recover and the ecosystem can then take hold and support everything itself. So as much as it might be heartbreaking to leave any of them alive on the plant sometimes, when you know the plant is suffering, you kind of need to, because you want to get it to a stage that the plant can kind of bring itself and recover. The ones that I've given you, these 5 different methods, they're all batchable, ready to use when you need it. So hopefully this has helped you to understand how to feed and support your garden naturally, and I'll catch you all later.